Hey everyone, welcome back to POL Sci 702, Advanced Techniques of Political Science Research. This week we're going to continue our discussion of linear regression, and we're going to focus on assumptions, diagnostics, and model evaluation. And while we're talking about model evaluation and diagnostics in the context of linear regression, a lot of the techniques that I'm going to show you this week are more general, and we'll apply them later on when we move on to generalized linear models and beyond as well. Okay? So let's move to the outline for this week. The videos that I have prepared for you for this week are cover three different topics. In the first one, I'll talk a little bit about regression assumptions and model evaluation. So how can we evaluate how well our specific regression model actually fits the data? And I'll present some different techniques to do so. The second part will move on to model selection and cross-validation, and here the question is not only to what extent does the model fit the data or fit characteristics of the data, but rather we're moving on to, we have two competing models, different model specifications, for example, and we want to evaluate which one is actually our preferred model, which one has better predictive power, essentially. Okay, and so the second part will focus on kind of how to select models based on relative predictive power using cross-validation. Okay. And in the last video, I'll talk about consequences of model misspecification. So what are potential issues if you have a misspecified model in the context of linear regression? And I'll go through a couple of examples to illustrate consequences depending on what type of misspecification we have. Okay. So your to-do list for this week, as always, please watch all the lecture videos and work through the code for this section on our Studio Cloud, which is uploaded as always. And then the chapter in our textbook for this week is chapter 11, which focuses on linear regression assumptions and diagnostics. And I added some additional readings that I uploaded on Canvas. Particularly one thing that you'll notice if you read the required or the chapter in our textbook is that the authors kind of focus on in this part of the book focus on regression as kind of or model evaluation from a perspective of predictive inference, right? So we're just trying to find a model that best predicts our outcome variable, okay? And they're not really concerned yet with causal inference, right? And so as soon as you're interested in estimating causal effects of certain predictors, model selection and which kind of variables to include and so on becomes a lot more complicated, and there are a lot more assumptions that are necessary in order for you to actually make these more causal claims based on your data. Okay, and so to kind of we'll move back to causal inference later in the semester, but to kind of foreshadow some of the arguments that will come up there, I included Sinelli and co-authors a crash course in good and bad controls, which provides a very short, nice, brief introduction into what type of variables we need to control for if we have potential confounders, and what type of variables we shouldn't control for if, again, we're interested in more of a kind of causal inference type of analysis rather than just maximizing predictive performance. Okay, so to go kind of beyond the predictive focus in the textbook chapter, I added that kind of short read, and you should definitely check that one out, and we can talk about that more in the Q&A session as well. I included some additional chapters, textbook chapters on regression assumptions and diagnostics. Again, as you've already seen, Gelman, Hill, and Vitari kind of take a very specific perspective on regression from using a Bayesian framework. And I included some additional kind of more classical frequentist treatments of regression and the underlying assumptions and diagnostics as well. So make sure to check those out as well. Okay. Lastly, I will also upload assignment 3 on Canvas and RStudio Cloud. And as always, you have 2 weeks to complete that assignment. It will be due on March 12th. Okay, so much for the overview. In the next video, I'm going to talk about regression assumptions and model evaluation.